We
got to talk about the guy who spends more time on the IR than he does the active roster, it feels like lately. And that's Azeez Ojulari, who
Bless you.
also is still extremely young, 23 years old. He does turn 24 next year, but it's crazy. You guys you see these guys like 25 years old getting drafted this year, and yet here's a guy who's a couple more years before he hits that. 6'3", 240 pounds, second round pick out of Georgia in 21. Last year, 11 games, 7 starts, 16 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 7 QB hits, 1 fumble recovery, and a 51.8 PFF grade. Definitely a down year for Azeez. Definitely the worst of his 3 years he's now had in the league.
Which is not saying too much.
No, I think that's yeah. I think the other years I can't complain about the production of the 2 years. I can complain about the availability, especially year 2.
Yes.
But the production has not been bad. I did something to see something here. So if you look at the last 2 years, he played 17-game season. So you're just about a full season between those 2 seasons. In those 2 seasons, 18 games, 40 tackles, 8 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 14 QB hits. That's not bad. Again, it's not top tier, but it's not bad for a guy who's going to be third on your depth chart at the position. That's not too bad at all.
And who has also probably not been 100% healthy because he's been battling injury on and off those 2 years.
And some of those 18 games, he probably didn't play, but more than a half or so in some of those in that kind of situation because of those injuries.
Yeah. Correct.
So again, the production has not been bad. I mean, like go back to 22 there over the prior season, he has 5.5 sacks in just 7 games. But it felt like what would happen is Azeez Ojulari would get a sack and an injury. It's like the two went hand to hand. You get a sack, you get an injury. You get a sack, you get an injury. Like that's the way it was. Like I felt like we kept having Azeez come back, get a sack, then get re-injured. So
you're not wrong.
And that's the issue people have had. And I feel like fans are already calling him a bust, basically, because he's a second round pick. I mean, let's be honest, second round picks come with expectations. There's the day 2 pick. You have expectations at that point. He's supposed to be the second best guy you added through the draft that year. So, assuming you had just 1 first round pick. But
assuming.
That's what I'm saying. You never know. We had 3 one year. We had 2 another year. I mean, but it's the expectations. We talked about this a little last year. I'm kind of wondering if they're really fair. I mean, the guy dropped to the very end of the second round, first off. And the guy dropped because there was injury concerns that came up in his medical portfolio there. And yet here we are blaming the guy for having medical issues.
That's fair.
It's like, could you imagine if like you were interested? Okay, we're going to go back to like the early young days of dating and someone says, oh, good for you. She's a cheater. And you're like, okay, well, I'll try it out. Oh my God, she cheated. I can't believe it. You were forewarned.
What? Yeah.
I know it's kind of a crazy analogy, but I'm saying it's the same thing. Like you knew he had injury issues. You knew there was medical red flags. So how y'all going to get pissed off at a guy for getting injured that had medical red flags going into this? I don't get that. I don't get that. Like this guy was like considered a first half of the first round talent wise, one of the best edge rushers in this draft, and he almost dropped to the third round. We were like, well, like with like the one of the last picks in the second round. I think we got him, if I remember right.
Something like
that. And nobody can believe we traded down in the second round and still got him. So I just don't get why people get flipping like as if the man's not trying to be healthy. You think he wants to not be healthy? You think he's like, you know what? I'm going to sit on the sidelines with a cast on eating bonbons.
I mean, that doesn't sound so bad.
They make bonbons still? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I feel like there's a hate that goes towards him because of the injuries, and I think part of that is he's kind of a victim of his own success he's had on the field. I think part of it is people see what he's done when he is healthy, and they want more.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some of that. I mean,
Like
I
you
think
didn't hear this with Shane Lemieux. Like people are like, "Oh my God, Shane Lemieux! What the hell? The guy can't stay healthy." We just kind of forgot he was on the roster.
there's a, I feel like there's a lot more hate at first that he was a bust. This is like there's potential. Like this is the guy that you
Yeah.
work with in a project at work or at school or whatever you guys are doing out there, and you're like, this dude's smart. This dude's great. He's just lazy. You're gonna have to do all his work, but he'll tell you what to do, but you're gonna have to do all his work. And it's like, oh man, this is fantastic. God, I gotta do
This
5
vending
papers.
session is brought to you by Indeed.com.
Yeah. Well, indeed.
Indeed, if you're actually interested, 2giantgoopballs at
Yeah.
mail.com. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the situation with him. And I wonder if keeping him now as a third edge guy is going to keep him healthy. And I'm intrigued to see what happens with him this season because of that. I think, again, you've seen this guy show pass rushing abilities. Kind of like Kayvon Thibodeau. He's not the best against the run necessarily, but he's not horrible. He's definitely not a strong point though. But he's shown the ability to get to the quarterback. And I wonder if they're going to start using him on the field along with Burns, Thibodeau, and Sexy Dexy, because that'd be quite a little quartet there.
Right. Ooh, quartet.
If he's healthy, people I think forget sometimes how good. Yeah, exactly. Like they should have strings. One's a violin, one's a cello.
Yes.
Dexter Lawrence is definitely the cellist. Dexter Lawrence is definitely the cellist.
100%.
But it's like, people. I think some people they almost forget like the production he can put up when he's healthy. Like this is the guy that if you can get him healthy like that and put him, and don't get me wrong, he's not going to be Tuck. He's not going to be Osi Umenyiora. He's not going to be JPP. IT Wanuka though.
Yeah.
And there's a role for guys like that, and you got to use them right. And this is a contract year for him, so he's got a little bit of gonna have a little pep in his step this season as well to prove he's worth that second contract, whether it's us or somebody else at that point there. Let's be honest, we're already paying him a lot of money to Burns. We're paying a decent amount of money to Kayvon as a top 5 pick. He probably, if he has a good year, will go elsewhere. But I have no problem with that. That's a good problem to have. How are we going to sign this guy at a great year? It's a great problem to have.
I was about to say, you can't sign this guy that you've been wanting to be.
Problem
very
the Giants
talented.
don't have is usually like, where are we going to fill these holes?
Well, if you really want to
know. Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I'm intrigued to see what Azeez is going to do. I think it's going to be a decent season for him. And if he can stay healthy, I still think he could be a starter in this league if he's healthy. It just remains to see if he's going to ever be fully healthy and be able to sustain a whole year. But we'll see if that's that year. We'll see if it is.
I don't know. We talked about what our freshman year at podcasting of him putting on too much beefcake. Beefcake.
Yeah, he did, and that was blamed for a lot of the injuries. Beefcake, but it's like, what was the excuse last year? And like I said, I think he's just going to be prone to injuries. I think he's got the medical red flags, and I think fans like to ignore it for a while because he looked good. The flags didn't go away; they were just at half-mast.
Whoa!
So, again, hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully we can get him up and running. Be a nice backup at that point. A guy you bring into like a third down situation, obvious passing downs. He's got that ability. So let's see what we can get at him this year.
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.